Hello, so today I'm going to take you through how I created a chatbot, and just to show you quickly what I mean when I say chatbot, I have a medical diagnosis treatment here, a large document with a lot of text, and I'm just going to pay attention to this area because it's very specific. So for a quick demo, what is the Schaffer's test? And so we'll create an AI agent which will access this document and answer it based on the information that's present there. It says the Schaffer's test is used to assess the presence of the palmaris longus tendon. It involves opposing the thumb and the little finger. And yeah, we can see it's exactly the same here. This test for assessment of the palmaris longus tendon involves opposing the thumb to the little finger, etc., etc. And as it's a Q&A, we can ask it, what other kinds of tests are there? Yeah, and it says Thompson's test and Mishra's test, and we can see that is the same here. So I'm going to take you through exactly how I did this from scratch, and just to quickly go over what we'll be covering. The resources that we're going to need, obviously N8N. Pinecone is the vector data store where the document resides, essentially. We use the vector data store because it's a lot easier for LLMs to access the information and a lot quicker for them to do so. OpenAI is the company of the LLMs, and Google Drive, that is where our original document will be residing. And we're going to create two workflows. The first one is to take that data from Google Drive and put it into the vector data store. And then the second one is that workflow where the AI agent will be communicating with Pinecone and retrieving the data upon the user's request. So if we get started, let's create a new workflow. Okay, so the first one, as I just mentioned, is going to be taking the data from Google Drive and putting it into Pinecone vector store. So we can just have a manual trigger, and our second node is going to be the Google Drive node. And here we just want to, in fact, download a file because we're going to be taking it from Google Drive and then putting it up into the Pinecone. So I covered it briefly in my last video, but you're going to want to set up your credentials here to begin with. I've already done mine, but if I were to create new credentials, you need to basically access your client ID and client secret, and this is all very easy. You just need to click that open doc link and follow the steps here. And there's a very good video here at the bottom which you should follow, and which I just followed to set up the credentials correctly. And once that's done, you'll be hooked up. We can close that. So we have a file. We want the operation to be download because we want to take it from Google Drive. And just to show you as well, so I have this obviously PDF document, and I've saved it in my Google Drive. And here, hopefully, it should come up with medical diagnosis stream. Just to show you exactly how it can be different, I'm just going to save this as medical chatbot. And I should just put this straight in. I'm wary of showing you guys too much. So if I just do that. And we'll just upload the document into the Google Drive. So that says it's done. Okay, so that's medical chatbot there. And we should be able to see this when we search for it in our file list. Perhaps it just needs a quick refresh. Yeah, here we go. Medical chatbot PDF. And then finally, that's all fine. We can execute the step to test and see if it will work. And yeah, you can see that the data has arrived here in binary file. Now, just pay attention to this because you're going to need to know that it's in binary in a later stage of this workflow. So now that we have the data, we want to put it into our Pinecone vector store and add documents to a vector store. So similarly to the last one, you're going to need to hook up your credentials to this. And this one's a very easy one. You just need to get your API key from your Pinecone account and put it right there. There is nothing else that needs to be done on this one. And you're going to want to create your own index. So I've created 2 indexes, but let me show you how you would. You just enter your index name. Let's do chatbot index. And then you want to take one of these LLMs. So I tend to use text embedding 3 small just because I know it works for what we want. And just on this one, pay attention to the dimensions because from experience, I just know that N8N by default puts the dimensions in 1536 up into Pinecone. So I'm sure this can be changed on the N8N side, but just for ease, I'm changing it on this side to keep the dimensions coherent. And then we can create our index. Okay, so that's created. And we should be able to see our index come up here. Exactly, chatbot index. And what we want to see, so we're taking the data from Google Drive and putting it into Pinecone Vector Store. And we just want to, just for good habits, we want to make sure we have our namespace. Let's call this medical chatbot. And so this is basically the file that will be saved into the vector store. And I believe that should be fine. Then we want to find our embeddings, OpenAI. Because we chose text embedding 3 small on the index in Pinecone, we want to make sure that this is the same, which it is. Move this. And then we want our default data loader. And this is basically how we configure how the data is going to be uploaded into the Pinecone vector store. So I mentioned previously, the data that has arrived is in binary. So it's not in JSON, because if we look at JSON, it's empty. It is binary. And so we're going to need to change this to binary here. And then the way that it works is that this will split up the text in certain chunks and then upload it in those batches. And if we keep it as simple, it could work. It's just a default 1000 for a 200 character overlap. But just to show you how you would do it if you wanted to configure this, you just put this as custom. This is fine. You don't need to touch this. And then we add our other text splitter node here. And so we're going to choose recursive character text splitter. And the reason I've chosen this is because because it's recursive, the way that it works is it will take certain chunks, but it is not like so if you have a large sentence or a large paragraph, a very simple way of doing it would be just cutting up that paragraph into equal size chunks. But recursive character text splitting makes it so that it basically kind of understands the whole text. So it takes only when there is a large break, if it can, and then it splits up the sentence a lot more coherently, let me say. And so this should hopefully reduce the number of hallucinations that the LLM will give. Let's put a chunk overlap around 100. I mean, we can keep the chunk size 1000. It's a very simple example anyway, but it's just to show you how you would do it if you were going to configure this a little bit more. So this is all done. Let me just check this again. So we're all here, fine here. And so let's save this. Oh, let me first label this as documents medical doc upload. And we should be able to execute the workflow and have it done. And so it's just pushing it up into Pinecone Vector Store, and it says it's done now. And if we just have a quick look here, yeah, we can see that we have our namespace exactly as we wanted. So that is correctly uploaded. So the next thing we want to do is create our workflow, which will have the AI agent, and it will talk with that Pinecone Vector Store and upon the user's request, and then basically act as a chatbot. So on chat message, we put this as our trigger node, and that's fine. We don't need to configure this any further. Then we want to pick our AI agent. So, I mean, there's a lot of different examples you can do here, but I'm going to pick this one because, I mean, I guess you can be a little bit more specific with the type of AI agent you choose. But just for the sake of this example, again, I'm just going to use the most basic setup. And the way we configure this is that we want to have a system message. So this is going to be the only thing that we're going to need to configure in this window. I'm going to come back to this because I'll show you how to do it very quickly and easily once the whole workflow is set up. But the type of LLM that we're going to use is put in this chat model, and we're going to have this as OpenAI chat model. And I have used GPT 4.0 because I've found that it works, but you can play around with all the different ones that you have there and see what works best for you. And then, so memory. We're going to need a memory because if it's a chatbot, it needs to understand what has gone on in previous conversation. And again, how much you configure this is completely dependent on what you want to use your chatbot for. But for this example, I'm going to use a simple memory. The other ones, these are just, so MongoDB, for example, is a different database where you can store and same with the other ones, where you can store the memory. So it's basically, if you want to have if you're working for a company and you have a large amount of users using this chatbot, you're going to want to look into a little bit more higher spec database. But for beginners, simple memory, this context window length is just the number of interactions that the chatbot will remember. So we can leave this as 5 for us. And we're going to want to have a tool to be the Pinecone Vector Store. Now, this tool is basically where the AI agent will refer to for the information it outputs to the user. And so in the description here, we want to have something along the lines of call this tool to access the information to answer users' questions. That's fine. Operation mode is retrieve, of course. The Pinecone index. So this is the same index that we put in previously, so chatbot index. And we should be able to put a Pinecone namespace. And I'm just going to copy that straight from here. Medical chatbot. Okay, so this is all done. So we can, of course, flesh out the AI agent even further if depending on your use case. I mean, you can add another workflow that you want to execute from this AI agent. You can do a whole load of different things. But for now, this is exactly how our chatbot is going to look. The one thing that we haven't put in is our system message. And the way that I'm going to show you how to do this really quickly is just copy the whole workflow and go to ChatGPT and just ask it to create a system prompt from here. Can you create me a system prompt for an AI agent which will use code vector store to access the information. And then I'm just going to paste the workflow there so that it has some kind of context. Now, if you're, of course, I mean, a system prompt is basically the most important part of this whole AI chatbot model. So if you're going to actually use it in a corporate environment, you're going to want to pay a lot more attention to that system prompt than we're doing here. But this is perhaps just a good way to get started on how you want to prompt the chatbot. And then for your specific use, you can narrow it down. So here, look, it's come up with all these things. I'm actually going to remove medical safety rules purely because I don't want to impact the type of information that it is going to give us. So if I paste that here, let's have a look. Let's take away these medical safety rules. Obviously, if it was in a medical environment, I would never do such a thing. Guidelines. Okay, this all looks fine. So we're all looking okay here. And now we can just test it out. So if I remember rightly, what is Mishra's test? Okay, so here we have an issue. We have forgotten here to have an embedding OpenAI. And we just want to make sure that we have text embedding 3 small again. That was just an oversight. Let's try that again. What is Mishra's test? And hopefully the AI agent will find something. Okay, Mishra's test is a method used to assess the presence of the palmaris longus tendon. The test involves the abduction of the thumb against resistance while ensuring that the wrist is in slight palmar. No idea if this is correct, but the test involves the abduction of the thumb against the resistance with the wrist slided. And yeah, so it seems like it's correct because these are all the tests that will apply to test the presence of palmaris longus. And I'm just curious to see how much it will kind of go on this. I wonder if it will say, why is this a good test? I'm curious. It may not even be in the document, so it may not have... but there we go. Well, there you have it. This is a chatbot that has used this very specific document to give us the information we want. And I just suggest that you play around with the AI agent configuration if you want to have a little bit more of a specific example. But here, I've just shown you how to do it from start to finish. Hopefully that makes sense. Please let me know if I can make it any better.